Bienvenidos a Mente, el podcast que explora las fronteras del éxito y la superación personal. En este episodio tenemos a un invitado realmente inspirador, Miguel Mendoza. Desde su infancia, Miguel ha estado marcado por la ambición, soñando con un futuro en el fútbol, pero a los 13 años enfrentó su primera gran batalla. Fue diagnosticado con colitis ulcerosa severa. Fue en Jalisco, México, donde encontró un tratamiento alternativo que lo curó en solo 6 semanas. Miguel vivió una intensa batalla interna, tanto mental como física, en México, pero fue allí donde descubrió su visión para la vida. Gracias a un libro motivacional que su madre le mostró, The Success Principles, de Jack Canfield, Miguel, aún en su adolescencia, aprendió que la vida no tiene límites mientras mantengas el deseo y la disciplina. A su regreso a Washington, Miguel persiguió su sueño de jugar fútbol a nivel colegial. A pesar de los obstáculos como las lesiones y la paternidad a los 20 años, Miguel equilibró la escuela, el trabajo, el fútbol y la custodia compartida de su hijo Marcus, recibiendo becas y asistiendo a la universidad. A los 23, Miguel abrió su propio negocio, Leave Your Mark LLC, inspirado en su hijo Marcus, donde inicialmente entrenó atletas en velocidad y fuerza, ayudándoles a romper barreras mentales para alcanzar sus metas. A los 26 se sumergió de lleno en el mundo de las conferencias motivacionales y los podcasts, manteniendo el nombre Leave Your Mark. Su visión es clara: ayudar a las personas a comprender que su vida no tiene límites, independientemente de sus circunstancias, y ayudarles a cumplir su verdadera visión de vida. Así que siéntate, relájate y prepárate para un viaje de inspiración y motivación mientras exploramos la vida y las enseñanzas de Miguel Mendoza, aquí en Mente. Bienvenido, Miguel Mendoza.
Hey, Mauricio Garcia here. Thanks so much for being with us. Today we have an amazing episode, since we're going to be talking about mindset, mental toughness, and the other sort of paradigms we need to adopt to have a lot of success. And we have a very special guest today who you're going to enjoy a lot, because this is the stuff that he talks about every single day. And so we're going to be inspired, I'm sure. So Miguel Mendoza, thank you so much for being with us today, brother. How are you?
I'm good, Mauricio. Thank you for having me, man. It's a honor to be on this show.
You know what? I couldn't stop scrolling on social media after just watching your stuff. It's like, this guy's speaking the language. This guy will probably be the perfect person to basically take Dimensional and the Mente series from now on, just because you talk a lot about that mental toughness. And with that, I'm curious to see how you define that. What's mental toughness to you?
Mental toughness, great question. Mental toughness is going through hardships on your way to achieving success, getting the things that you want to get in this life. It's going through those hard times without retreating, right? Yes, we need to take rest every now and then. We need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves nutrition-wise, health-wise. But mental toughness is just, it's perseverance, right? It's you're pursuing something so much, and then when you face adversity, you find a way to keep going, right? And I'm not saying we're going to be perfect at it to begin with, but if you continue to persevere, that's where the mental toughness grows, right? A lot of people think that mental toughness is, we just go through things and then we kind of like give up and let it pass, and we consider that growing and getting us stronger. But that's not true at all. Just like patience, right? Patience doesn't grow by you losing your cool. Patience grows by you enduring that real either irritated moment or high pressured moment while keeping your cool composure. And so same thing with mental toughness. It's going through things repeatedly without giving up, without retreating, without breaking character. And if you do that enough times, that's how that mental toughness grows.
Yeah, I hear it from many people. It's not about how many times you fall, right? It's just having the ability to get up one more time. If you can get up that one more time, you're going to win.
That's right.
It doesn't matter. So obviously, failure sort of defines who you are today. And I'm taking a lot of these from the quotes that I got to dive deeper and really, just demystify the whole thing. So failure, you say, is a sort of the thing that makes you stronger, that makes you wiser. So if you're not failing, you're not succeeding. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have heard this before. When did you begin to embrace failure as a way to say, okay, well, I'm failing means I'm growing, but also try not to fail, right? Because there's that fine line between you're looking to succeed, not looking to fail. But the fact that you fail along the way, it's how you embrace that. How would you dive deeper into that concept?
Yeah, great question. So I learned the importance of failure by really just understanding that everybody that's great at something, right? Michael Jordan, Steve Jobs, all these people have endured failure. They say that they have learned more from their failures than their wins and their successes. And so that lets me know that failure ultimately just means that you really want something and you fell short, but you got to keep going. And so, but I like what you said about having that balance, right? Having that balance with, we don't want to keep tripping over the same problem, right? We don't, ideally, you don't want to make the same mistake twice. That's something that I always tell people is you should never make the same mistake twice. You should always learn from a situation. If you can learn from somebody else's mistake,
that's the point. Yeah, because it's like the smartest people learn from other people's mistakes, right?
That's right. That's absolutely right. But we do have to go through that failure, right? And so for me, like me growing up and becoming successful as an entrepreneur and a speaker, it came with many, many, many failures, right? It comes with it. You're not going to avoid failures. And you look at any top tier individual in their platform, right? In their sport, in their sense of business, they have failed multiple times. And you notice that the people who end up successful, or at least they end up a lot more successful than most, are the ones who just didn't give up, who didn't retreat, right? There's a saying, it says, if you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later you're going to get a haircut, right?
Yeah, it wasn't even about whether they're more talented or not. They just had they had the energy, not the energy, I would say the courage to persevere a little longer.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yep.
Those are all phenomenal concepts. Now, in terms of, I wanted to say something else, but it kind of flew off my mind. But it's, just having the mindset to push when things get hard, because they will get hard, no matter what you are envisioning. I think every human on this earth, if there's one thing we have in common, is that we want to better our current lifestyle, right? Like we all want more, or most people say want more out of life. And it doesn't come without that hardship, without the setbacks. How do you develop that mindset? Speaks about mental toughness, but what do you tell yourself when things get hard and don't go your way, to be able to get up one more time? Is that one sort of phrase or quote?
Yeah. When times get hard, honestly, the thing that has saved me time and time is just the vision that I have for my life. And I believe that that's the greatest gift that we as humans are ever given, right? Call it by God, by the universe. We're given vision. And a lot of people like to disagree. Like, what? I don't have a vision for my life. It's like, yeah, it's just at some point you allowed the world to bury it, right? And so a vision is something that you care so much that you would do it for free. You enjoy doing it, and it's going to impact people. So we all have a vision for our lives, of whether it be in the form of music or art or business or a nonprofit organization. But if you have vision, then you will be able to push through those hard times, right? And what's the opposite of that? What's the consequences of not having vision? I mean, if somebody doesn't have vision, they have every right to be miserable, right? Because what are they waking up for every day? What are they looking forward to every day? What are they pushing for? What are they working day in and day out for? And so for me, getting through the hard times, I've always just looked at my vision. And when I say vision, I don't mean what we can see with our eyes. I mean what we can see with our minds, right? Is having that faith and that belief that this is going to happen for me, or this is going to happen for my family or my community. It's never losing sight of that, and the impact that your vision is going to have on other people, right? Because everybody, like you said, we're all going to get to a point where we just are going through the hardest time and we feel like giving up. But it's the ones who can kind of take the situation beyond themselves and say, hey, this is going to impact so many people. A little boy, a little girl that isn't going to know how to be successful until they look at your story, right? And so when I'm going through the hardest, darkest times, I think of the vision and I think of how the world needs it, right? Because if you think about where most people's visions are in the world, they're in the graveyard, right? Amazing analogy I heard by Les Brown, but most of the amazing ideas and dreams and visions are in the graveyard because so many people did not bring them out into this world. So instead, they died with them when they were buried. And so for me, I'd much rather say, oh, well, than what if. I'd rather say, oh, well, I tried, I gave it my all, than, man, what if I would have tried? What if I would have tried even when everything was not going my way? What if I would have tried even when I failed over and over again? What if I would have just tried one more time? And so these are all the things that I think about, Mauricio, on a daily basis when things may seem overwhelming or when tragedy has hit my life. It's always about the vision, because when you have vision, you have hope, man.
Absolutely, man. It's great that you say that, because I remember as I was working on my mindset, I used to think that just thinking positively or saying things positively was like silly things, that they weren't really going to impact my life until, things didn't go well. I didn't understand the power of thought, the power of words, right? How they turn into your actions, and then those actions then become a certain reality. And now I take it a lot more serious, because it has, by making the change, I've been able to accomplish a lot. But this about you, and I think, in order for you to go to where you want to go, you have to evolve, and sometimes it requires leaving people behind. Some of these people are family members, right? Some of these people are parents, and I'm not saying you leave your parents behind, but how do you then leave some of these ways of thinking? Because you don't have to necessarily leave the person, right, or forget about where you come from to adopt these new ways of thinking that can get you to where you want to go. Because you can't get to that big vision. Like you talk about vision, I'm sure you're excited about it because you see it with total clarity. You know exactly what you want to go. And I want to hear a little bit more about that. But going to how you went about being able to get rid of the toxic people, and maybe the definition of the label shouldn't always just be toxic, just people that don't really add to where you're trying to get to, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I love how you even differentiated that there are toxic people you need to get rid of. And then there's people who just interfere with the vision, right?
That's right.
And it sounds very selfish to leave these people behind, or at least take a lot of the focus away from them. But I have 6 little siblings. And so what has helped me, and none of them live, I'm here in Portland, Oregon. A lot of them are in my hometown of Pasco, Washington, which is about a 4-hour drive. So a lot of them will call me and stuff, but I have to be very cautious with my time, whether it be family or old friends, whatever the case may be, because if you want to play the selfless card, right? I put air quotes there because it's not really being selfless. If you just want to hang out with the old friends and just keep doing what you guys have always been doing and just talk about stuff and never actually do it, that's actually selfish, because nobody wins in that situation. Nobody's going to be successful. But if you want to do what's looked at more as selfish in the eyes of others, really it's not selfish, because you are taking a leap into a little bit more isolation, maybe a lot more. Mm-hmm. And you're doing what's uncomfortable. You're breaking generational type curses. You're breaking generational type toxic relationships of like, hey, no, I know what I need to do for my life, and this is the direction that I need to go. If you would like to support that, if you would like to kind of fit this mold, then great. But if not, somebody has to go the way so they can show the way. Somebody has to leave the old neighborhood, leave the ways that we used to do things growing up, and actually go to the life of no limitations, so I can show all of you that if I could do this, you guys could do this, because we come from the same place. And it reminds me of an analogy of a rocket, right? So a rocket, when it takes off, it it first starts with launching pads.
Right.
And once it gets to a certain altitude, it leaves the launching pads behind so it can actually go out into a space, into its destination. And so we're the same way, right? Like everybody's in our life for a reason. Some of them may just be there for a season. And so it gets to a point where you're getting to a certain level to where you have to leave certain people behind. And if you don't, you're not going to make it to that destination. Just like that rocket. If it didn't leave those launching pads behind, it wasn't going to make it to its destination. And so again, this can sound very selfish to people, but really it's not. You know what I mean?
And it's inevitable, though. I think, in my opinion, I think it's inevitable because as you adopt new ways of thinking, it's like you go into this different frequency that no longer aligns with the other frequency, and so you just you leave, even if originally you weren't intended to. You have to, and then you realize that in order to enter these new circles of successful people or the people that you're trying to model or wish to be, they think differently. There's all these levels of thinking. So to me, it almost happened organically as I was really kind of working on myself. I was so busy, right? You then found yourself in a complete different environment, and you then look back, if we could put it this way, and you no longer identify with these old ways of thinking or even habits or activities that you used to invest your time in, because you've just completely replaced them with other things. So people, whether you intentionally leave them or not, it's going to happen either or, because you're moving. It's like you're moving. So that was a great message. Now, to becoming an unstoppable person, have you identified a formula? Is there a formula that you follow that developed that unstoppable Miguel Mendoza?
Yes, absolutely.
Going towards your vision.
Yeah. So I have 3 pillars to success, or 3 pillars to achieving your vision. And that's, you got to believe, right? You have to believe. That's step 1. You have to believe when times are favorable. You have to believe when times are not favorable. Believe in yourself, believe that you can actually achieve this vision. The second thing is discipline. Right? You have to be disciplined. You have to do the things that you need to do despite how you feel, right? Everybody gets inspired with a great idea, but what happens when that inspirational feeling wears off? Are you still going to do the things that you said you were going to do long after the moment where you had this inspirational feeling is long gone? So discipline, very essential. And the third thing is consistency. Right? You don't have to be extraordinary. You just have to do the ordinary things extra. Consistency will actually get you far ahead than most people. Like in the podcast industry, 99% of people don't make it past 25 episodes. So if you're just consistent enough to get to 26 episodes, you're the 1% of podcasters. And so, but really that's the way of life, is even people who are naturally gifted, can they be consistent? Even the people who have really developed their craft and their work ethic, can they be consistent? And so those are definitely the 3 pillars that I live by, that I teach, that are definitely going to get you there.
Absolutely. They were powerful. Now, obviously, the comparison game, I think we all sort of done that in our lives. I did it. I mean, in the beginning, and a lot of my frustration came because I'm thinking, well, I'm 20 and I got this guy who's 20 and he's like millionaire. He's got all this, done all that. Right. And and then at my 30s, the same thing. And now in my 40s, the same, well, I've gotten over that. And I heard from a great mentor of mine, it's like, you're only in competition with you. Just be better, the best version of you tomorrow, really. That's what you have to kind of focus on. And that really has helped me a lot. And why would you say, comparing yourself with others is a losing proposition? Because I think more than, especially in the world of social media, is people are comparing themselves to other people. Sometimes it's not that it's unrealistic, because you can actually accomplish what you see and even more. You just have to be obviously patient, put in the work, like you say, right? But this comparison thing, when did you realize comparing yourself was a losing proposition?
I realized it when you look at life as like a gym, right? You look over to the left, you're going to see somebody in much better shape than you. But if you look over to the right, you're going to see somebody that's dying to be in your situation, in your position. And really, this goes back to that quote, comparison is the thief of all joy, right? Because, and yes, there's success, but even just borderline happiness, like you're never going to be truly happy if you're constantly comparing to what this person has, right? Right. Like when you were 20, comparing to what other 20-year-olds had, because at the end of the day, yes, there's a healthy dose of comparison that is good. It sets a nice goal.
For inspiration. It's like you say, is the perspective is it's how you use it, right? If it's going to use to inspire, that's great, but not to compare, because that's different. It's like when you say, there's great power in gratitude. Like you can be happy, right? It's all perspective. It's how you look at things that are happening to you. And I know I'm jumping from one thing to the next, but I think it goes hand in glove into this whole thing, because how not to feel, like you're falling behind when somebody who's like half your age has done, at least financially or from a materialistic standpoint of what they show you on social media that they're doing, right? Versus just saying, hey, listen, that should serve me as an inspiration, but not necessarily as a comparison.
Right. Yeah, no, it's definitely, I say, people ask me, oh, will you be happy once you're, or people ask me for advice, like, will I be happy once I'm successful? Will I be happy when this happens? It's like, look, if you're not happy right now, if you don't choose to be happy right now, then you're going to struggle. Because you're going to go after these things. And once you have them, you're going to realize that the reason why you're not happy is because you didn't make that change from within that you could have made when you had nothing. Right. And so ultimately it's like, we as humans, we focus on all the things that we don't have. We focus on the things that we're going after, and we focus on the vision, the journey, which is great, but we lose track of everything that we do have. We lose track of all the amazing gifts that we were born with. We lose track of even the most simplest things, right? Because everybody's ungrateful for their health until they have like a really bad flu or a really bad illness. And then they're like, man, what I would do to just be normal, just have my normal health again, right? It takes these things for us to get our gratitude up, but that's the problem. That's why I believe that we're dealing with so much of this just sorrow and misery, is that we're losing track of how amazing life is in itself, how amazing our life is. I have a 6-year-old son, and him just being healthy and alive makes me happy. Everything else in life is a bonus. And trust me, there are reasons for me to not be happy, right? I'm not saying my life is perfect, but what are you focusing on, right? And then, I mean, kind of going back into comparison, is the only person that you really should compare with and compete with is yourself, like you were saying, Mauricio, because I always say, like, hell is dying one day and meeting the version of yourself that you were meant to be. Right. So in that case, I like to compare myself to the best version of Miguel, right? The best version that I could be, because I don't want to die and meet the actual best version of the person that, took his health very serious, impacted so many lives. Like, I don't want to miss out on that. So I want to do that now. So that's like that healthy comparison of who you want to compare yourself with and compete with every single day.
Thank you, man. Listen, as we wrap up, I'm curious to know, because you're a very driven individual who's creating a lot of great content, inspiring a lot of people. And I know you have clarity in your vision. Share with our audience, like, what's your vision? What really drives you? What's that big grand vision you have?
My big grand vision is impacting lives. There's right now somewhere, Mauricio, there's a little boy, a little girl that's sick in a hospital bed, that's being told that their dreams are over. I say that because I was that little boy when I was 13. I was diagnosed with an illness, and I was told that the things that I wanted to do were not going to happen. And it was reading books. It was listening to speakers like Les Brown, my favorite speaker of all time. These people gave me hope. They cured me mentally, and then I was cured physically. And so my vision is to help those little boys and girls understand that they are not limited in life, that they are limitless, is to help the kids who are arrested in juvie understand that their life is not over. The people who just come from a limited environment, it's to help them understand that there are no limitations in life. There's only the made up ones that people put over them, and that they learn to believe. So my vision is to help those people by any means necessary. And with that comes where I'm going to need to be, which is I'll be the world's most sought after speaker. My podcast show will be one of the top 5 podcast shows within the next 2 years. I'll have written about 3 books in the next 5 years. I'll be on talk shows. I'll be everywhere, all because that's what's needed to happen to make this impact and to fulfill this vision.
Wow. I was going to ask you, how much of what you lived as a little boy fuels who you are today, when you kind of sort of answered it. I know obviously you grew up in a home where your parents were divorced, right? How much of, maybe they just ask in case you wanted to add some, how much of what you lived as a little boy fueled who you are today? You already described about, losing your health and being told that whatever you had as dreams were not going to happen. What other lessons you think should have put that chip on your shoulder today to get that drive?
Yeah, everything. When it comes to my parenting and when it comes to the way that I live my life, I want to say most of it comes from my childhood. Of yes, there's many, great things, but also like the things that I just realized was wrong. I realized that I need to do this a different way. And so it's, it's just one of those things where you just reflect, right? You reflect on everything and you try to be better when it's your turn, when it's your go around. And so, yeah,
what are some of these curses that you've identified and say, this is wrong, this is not how I'm going to raise my children? Now that's one of the toughest things to do, man. I have 3 and 1 more on the way. Okay. So I'll have a 4. I love this relationship you have with your son. It really, brought tears to my eyes in how, he's able to express himself emotionally so well.
Yeah.
And anyways, they brought a lot of memories of things that I'm living through with, my oldest one is 7. I have a 4, I have a 2, and obviously one that it's supposed to be due here in January of 2024.
Wow. Busy man.
Yeah, I've got to stay busy. But just those curses, like there's some of the things that the way we were brought up. Like I know my parents and even the teachers, in their best of the intentions for us to learn from our mistakes, right? They would physically abuse us. They would, and in the escuela, the teachers would hit you, right, with whatever they could find, I guess. And some of these things that we know aren't necessarily the best practices and ways to raise children. I'm just curious to see what are some of these curses you've identified. We have to get into all of them, but some that you are sort of applying differently with your son.
Yeah, the biggest one,
as a little boy.
Yeah, the biggest one was neglect. You know what I mean? Biggest one was neglect. My parents divorced when I was 6, and they did the best they could. I love my parents. They're both from Mexico. They were pretty young when they came over to the States, but they did the best they could. But I mean, they were dealing with a divorce, their own lives and work, and my mom worked 2 jobs and everything like that. And so, yeah, it kind of just seemed like I had no one to go to. I had no one to talk to about things. I had to learn a lot of the things from the streets, from friends, which is not the best place to learn things. And so I struggled a lot, man. I struggled a lot. And I feel like one of the dangerous things for a child is to feel so alone. You have nobody to go to talk to about things. And so that's why that was the biggest one. And then things like drugs, alcohol, stuff like that. I just told myself, I'm like, it ends with me, and in order for that to happen, you have to be the change that you want to see. Right. And so I knew step 1 was I needed to be the example. And so there was a lot of things I needed to change about myself, my anger, my patience, just all these characteristic traits. Like I was always a hard worker, but there were things in my heart, in the way that I loved, that I needed to fix. And so yeah, I chose to break those generational curses, man. And it comes down to not giving your past an excuse. You can't, that can't be an excuse forever. I'll give you this quick story. There's a alcoholic dad and there's two sons. One of the son doesn't drink at all, and the other son is an alcoholic. And they asked the two boys, they're like, what happened? Like, why don't you drink? Oh, because my dad drank. Ask the other guy, why are you an alcoholic? Oh, because my dad was an alcoholic. So we come from many different backgrounds, but it cannot be an excuse for you to carry on or worse than that.
Powerful.
Yeah.
You made me remember a comment. I made a video a while ago. I said, hey, I was sort of just sharing with people my journey, how I came from being the factory worker, right, earning minimum wage, to becoming the first millionaire in my family. And I was just describing what was the vehicle I utilized to do that. And I shared the story of one of my brothers who always said, hey, how are you doing it, right? I see you're having all this success, you're doing all this. And as much, as hard as I'm working, like I don't seem to be able to grow. But the comments were, instead of you trying to tell us what to do, why don't you help your own brother, sort of be successful. I'm like, it's very interesting how, you have siblings, I have siblings, and we grew up in the same home with the same values, and yet we all have so different outcomes.
Right.
Which always makes you wonder, what is it exactly? Is it, how much is it really depend upon the things we lived at home? Or how come is that I have such a different result than some of my brothers and sisters, right? That never really pursued what they wanted to do. They were always scared. And it just makes me wonder. I don't have an answer for that. I'm wondering if you have discovered something in that, because you have so many, completely different outcomes coming from the same sort of school or launching pad.
Yeah. There's a lot of child psychology that goes into that. But ultimately, I believe once you get to the age of, 17, 18, 19, whatever you've gone through, it can no longer be an excuse. Like at that point, you learn what's right, what's wrong. You learn what's good, what's bad. You learn what's successful, and you learn what's failure. You learn what a winner is and what a loser is. And so at that point, you can no longer blame your past, because you know what you need to do. You know what's good. So it's now your responsibility to go get that, to fix what you need to fix and go get that. And I say this because I come from a really dark background. And we all know of people who come from a very, very dark, way worse than me, maybe way worse than all of us, backgrounds, who have found a way to succeed and live a happy, fulfilling life. So it can't be an excuse.
Oh man, great message, Miguel. Hopefully you'll accept our invitation and have more conversations about this, because the whole point is, again, to inspire people. And I want them to know, obviously, that it requires a certain mindset to be able to get through things, to materialize whatever it is that you're trying to materialize, whether that's a vision and that goal. So thank you for that, my friend. Te mando un abrazo hasta allá, hasta donde te encuentras, and we'll see you next time, man.
All right, Mauricio. Thank you for having me, man. I'll come back anytime. I love your show.
Thank you. Take care. As you can see, the mindset of a winner, right? We just went through at least 10 to 15 ways of thinking and mindset that enables, and I think these are universal, that can actually help anybody help them get from where they are now to where they want to go. So hope you took some notes. Make sure that you share this with the people you love. And if you want to follow Miguel Mendoza, his information will be somewhere around where you're watching this interview. So with that being said, thanks so much for spending time with us today. We'll see you in the next interview. Take care.